We said this yesterday that the Monday injury report for the Phoenix Suns was going to be one of the more closely viewed injury reports in a long time. And it seemed like over the weekend, it was all bad news for the Suns. We learned Kevin Durant's going to be out for 2 weeks at a minimum. We saw in the game against the Kings, Nurkic tried to give it a go, ruled out at halftime. And then you had Bradley Beal dealing with, at first, an ankle injury, and then he hurt his knee. So he was dealing with an ankle and then a knee injury. And we have just been spending a lot of time waiting for injury reports, both for the Suns and for the Cardinals as well. We have just been waiting for injury designations to be released to us, and then we've been able to react to them. And we thought this one was going to be a nerve-wracking one because you were waiting to see what was going on with Bradley Beal. You were waiting to see what was going on with Nurkic. You already knew Durant was going to be out for 2 weeks. We've spent a lot of time on this show talking about this test for the Phoenix Suns, what this stretch of games was going to mean for this team. And if they were without Beal or without Nurk for an extended period of time, it kind of takes away our ability to gauge this in any meaningful way, other than if the Suns, without those guys, just go on a complete tear, continue to play great basketball, and then you can say, all right, this team is okay without Kevin Durant for a stretch. They're okay without Bradley Beal for a stretch. That's the only way we would take anything of value from this. If they lost a bunch of games with these guys sidelined, you'd say, yeah, they're not healthy. Well, what am I supposed to do with this? If this is the roster they pour out in the postseason, I'm not going to pick them to win a series. So it's hard to gauge these things. Well, we got a good news report. Nurkic listed as questionable for tonight's game against Utah, but more importantly, there was a name that wasn't on the injury report at all, and that was the name of Bradley Beal. I don't think the Phoenix Suns would have been able to get through this stretch and this test that we've talked about with both Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant sidelined. This organization, with the way that it is constructed, the way that it is built to win in 2024, and then when the calendar turns to 2025, they need at least two, but most of the time all three, of the big three to be playing. They have built this team counter to the way teams are being built now. The big three era was a few years ago. A lot of teams are going to the dynamic duo with some really high-quality role players. The Suns are still, I don't want to say stuck, but they are still in that previous era. They are trying to make it work with a big three. When you set your team up that way, you got to have those guys healthy, because with a dynamic duo, if one of your Batman and Robin has to miss time, you have high-quality role players who can step up. You're not dealing with a limited rotation with the way a team that is built the way the Suns are is. We spent all summer wondering what this bench was going to look like. Second apron team, all of the limitations that were against them. If you're a dynamic duo team, you have a little bit more flexibility. So instead of having a 1-2-3, you have a 1-2, and then you have a really solid 3-4-5-6. So this team, the way that they are constructed, needs two, if not all three, of the big three playing most of the time. And so with Bradley Beal not being on the injury report at all, this is a huge opportunity for Bradley Beal to step up and help guide this team, help be a leader on this team through this stretch. Now, they start with Utah tonight. Utah is not getting off to a good start this season. This is an NBA Cup game. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA Cup later on in the program, but this is an NBA Cup game on the road for the Phoenix Suns. And so a really nice opportunity for Bradley Beal to step up and help be the partner to Devin Booker. Because let's be honest, Bradley Beal is viewed as the third piece of this big three. He is viewed as the least important member of the big three. When you have a superstar to the level of Kevin Durant, he's going to suck up a lot of the oxygen in the room. When you have a longtime franchise caliber player in Devin Booker, who's been here his entire career, that's going to suck up a lot of the oxygen in the room. Bradley Beal, yeah, he was brought over here to be a star, to be the third piece of this puzzle, but was in Washington. Doesn't carry the cachet that Kevin Durant does. Hasn't been with the franchise the way a Devin Booker has. And so he can kind of be casted aside a little bit. It's like, this might age me a little bit here. We'll give it a shot, though. Think of boy bands like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, right? Very popular groups, made lots of money, had successful tours, successful albums.
20 years ago.
Oh, that's fine, but the point's still going to stand here that in each of those groups, there's one member of each of those groups you can't name right now, at least. There's at least one member of those groups that you can't name. They were a key part of it. You don't have NSYNC without everybody. You don't have the Backstreet Boys without everybody. And I forget which. I think Joey Fatone was in NSYNC. I think. I'm not really sure.
I'm going to guess yes.
I think so. But the point still stands that in those boy bands, there's always one person that you forget about. That's Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is the forgotten person. Really important. Still a member of the team that makes the whole thing tick, makes the whole thing successful. But he's not talked about the way Justin Timberlake is talked about.
Somebody's a Ringo.
Right. The Beatles, an even older reference than the boy bands that I reference, but also would work. Also a valid analogy there, producer Corey. And so this is his chance to step up in Durant's absence. This is his moment to, while this team is playing good basketball, an 8-2 start to the year, threatening the top seed in the West, winning in these clutch moments, just playing good basketball, albeit I don't know if it's long-term winning basketball with some of the things that they're doing. They're finding ways to win basketball games. That's great. They have a new offensive system that they're trying to learn. They're trying to gel with new players. This was not supposed to start this well, this quickly. And it has. You want to keep that momentum going. You want to make people really buy in. You want to make the conversation about, even without Kevin Durant, this team hasn't missed a beat. Bradley Beal steps up in the absence of Kevin Durant. Other players on this team step up in the absence of Kevin Durant. Ryan Dunn, here's your chance. Here's your moment. Here's your opportunity. And so this team has a big three, but in that big three, there's a hierarchy. And Bradley Beal, when the other two guys are healthy and active and on the court, can kind of be overlooked, can kind of be overshadowed. Well, Kevin Durant is out. So the spotlight is now going to turn to Bradley Beal. The attention is going to be on Bradley Beal. Can he step up and help Devin Booker lead this team through this test? Because tonight starts 4 games in a row for this team. We've talked about it. They play the Kings. They play the Timberwolves. They play the Thunder. Real, true litmus test games early on in the NBA season for this team. Tonight, not so much. It's an NBA Cup game, so you know that Utah is going to be jazzed for the game. See what I did there? Utah Jazz. They're jazzed for the game. They'll be very excited to play an NBA Cup game. These games provide more juice during the regular season. We've seen that in the way the players have reacted to it. But they're off to a bad start this year. So this is the one that you really should have. And then you have Kings, Timberwolves, Thunder. Those are your next 3. This is the test. If they get to the other side of this with 3 or 4 losses, and they've done so without Kevin Durant, you'd feel really good about where this team's at. You'd feel really solid. And so with yesterday being a little bit of a panicked environment around the Phoenix Suns, with really the first bad weekend of the year for the Phoenix Suns, and yes, it's early, but this was the first weekend where things were not going perfect, where it just seemed like everything that was needed to go the Suns' way was going the Suns' way. Comeback after comeback, clutch moment after clutch moment. This weekend was the first real stop sign that was thrown up in the way of the Phoenix Suns. Yesterday's injury report, a nice positive step for this team, so that maybe instead of a stop sign, it was more of a yield, and that they'll get this car back on the highway, and we will see this team continue where they left off. It's going to be up to Bradley Beal and company to step up in Kevin Durant's absence, and an opportunity for Ryan Dunn, like we mentioned, to try and thrive in the absence of Kevin Durant and show to this coaching staff that he deserves to be trusted with key minutes and key moments. Now, they don't really have a choice right now because of the injury to Durant, but he's going to be thrown in there, and he needs to show if he can sink or swim. And I think he's going to show that he can swim. So the Suns back in action tonight against the Utah Jazz for an NBA Cup game.